You're mid-sentence when your brain fractures the conversation into 12 parallel threads. She asked a simple question, something about weekend plans, but your mind is already running simulations. Her tone suggests she wants an invitation, but her body language reads obligation. And if you say yes, does that mean you're close enough for spontaneous hangs now? Or is this a test of social calibration? And what if you're misreading everything? And why is parsing a 4-word question requiring this much processing power, and she's still looking at you, waiting, and your mouth hasn't moved yet, and the pause is stretching into awkwardness, and maybe, you finally say. She blinks, smiles tightly, moves on. You're left standing there, chest tight, knowing you just failed something that looked effortless for her. Again. This is one of 8 patterns you've probably never named, but have lived 1,000 times. The kind of struggle that doesn't show up on intelligence tests, but makes you wonder if your brain is built for a world that doesn't quite exist. The paralysis of infinite context. Someone asks where you want to eat. It's meant to be simple. Normal people light up at the question. They have a craving, a go-to spot, an immediate answer. The conversation moves forward in under 5 seconds. Your brain detonates. First comes the dietary matrix. Are they vegetarian? Lactose intolerant? Do they actually like Indian food, or were they just being polite last time? Then the budget calculation. You'd suggest the nice place, but what if they can't afford it, and now you've made it weird? Then ambiance mapping. Loud versus quiet, romantic versus casual. Will this location send the wrong message about your intentions? Then the meta-analysis. Why are you this bad at something this simple? Why does every choice feel like a referendum on your competence? They're still waiting. You see their expression shift from patient to confused. I'm good with anything, you say, which is both true and a complete lie. Cognitive scientists call this multidimensional processing, the brain's refusal to accept surface-level data when depth exists. Research shows that higher intelligence correlates with increased activation across neural networks during decision-making tasks. Your brain isn't broken. It's running calculations they don't see. Every question triggers a cascade. Implications, context, hidden variables, second-order consequences. They choose based on preference. You choose based on a 30-variable equation you can't turn off. The trade-off is real. You're thorough, considerate, attuned to complexity. You also can't pick a restaurant without experiencing minor existential paralysis. They move through life lighter. You move through it seeing dimensions they don't know exist. The weight of every door you open, every path you don't take, every choice that branches into infinity. You've learned to disguise this. I'm easy means my decision tree just crashed your system. Whatever you want means I've already mapped 18 outcomes and I'm tired. It's not indecision. It's seeing dimensions they don't know exist, and you can't unsee them. You've tried. The loneliness of unshared observations. You're watching a movie with friends. They're laughing, gasping at the plot twist, immersed in the story. You're cataloging narrative inconsistencies. The protagonist's motivation contradicted her establishing character beat in Act 1. That cinematographic choice in the mirror scene was a direct homage to Hitchcock. The thematic through-line about identity is undermined by the third act resolution. You notice the score swelling to manipulate emotion, and you feel the manipulation working on you even as you deconstruct it. You're experiencing 2 films simultaneously, the one everyone else is watching and the one you can't stop analyzing. Someone says, "That was amazing." You nod. You don't mention the continuity error or the tonal whiplash or the way the ending betrayed its own premise. You've learned. Pointing out what you see doesn't enhance their experience. It just makes you the person who ruins things. Psychologists call this pattern recognition hyperactivity, a cognitive tendency to identify connections, inconsistencies, and structures automatically. Studies on high-intelligence populations show persistent activation in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, even during leisure activities. While others' brains shift into idle mode, yours stays in analysis mode, finding patterns in everything from background details to thematic architecture. The mechanism is simple. You can't turn it off. They watch the movie. You watch the movie and the craft of the movie and the cultural context of the movie and your own reaction to the movie. It's exhausting, and it's also what makes you catch brilliance they miss. Foreshadowing? visual metaphors, deliberate choices that reward attention. But you can't just enjoy things, at least not the way they do. Later you read reviews. Someone else noticed the Hitchcock reference. You feel less alone for 30 seconds. Then you remember, you're watching the movie with people who will never care about what you care about. You love them. The loneliness persists. You see more. You feel it less. That's the bargain. And nobody told you that you were signing up for it. The exhaustion of translating yourself. How are you? It's Monday morning. Casual conversation. Expected response time, 2 seconds. The real answer is a 400-word essay with footnotes. You spent the weekend reading about emergent complexity in decentralized systems and having a minor crisis about the illusion of control in human planning, and you're processing a conversation from Thursday that revealed something about your childhood attachment patterns, and you're tired, but not physically tired. More like tired of performing a coherent self across contexts, and good, you say. You? Something inside you dims. This is the invisible tax of existing in your brain. Constant translation. Your thoughts are baroque, recursive, multi-threaded. Normal conversation requires them to be linear, simple, brief. So you compress. You edit in real time. You watch their eyes to gauge how much complexity they can hold, and you calibrate accordingly. They ask what you did this weekend. The true answer involves a fascinating article about mycelial networks and 3 hours lost to a Wikipedia rabbit hole on the evolution of written language, and a moment of genuine transcendence while watching light filter through your window. You say, not much, relaxed. Neuropsychologists call this cognitive compression fatigue, the mental load of code switching between internal complexity and external simplification. Research on executive function shows that constant inhibition of natural thought patterns depletes cognitive resources. Your brain wants to speak its native language. Social acceptance requires you to translate into something simpler. The trade-off: you fit in. You're rarely understood. They speak directly from their thoughts to their words. You're running every sentence through a filter. Is this too much? Will they think I'm showing off? Does this make me sound weird? You've learned that complexity is perceived as evasion, thoroughness as anxiety, depth as pretension. You start the real answer in your head. You see their eyes glaze. You abort mid-thought. The burden of seeing consequences. Your friend is excited. She's thinking about quitting her job, moving across the country, starting fresh. Her eyes are bright with possibility. She wants you to share her enthusiasm, to validate the impulse, not to say, do it. Your brain is already 30 moves ahead. You see the cost of living differences, the job market realities in that city, the relationship strain of long distance, the statistical likelihood of this solving the underlying dissatisfaction she hasn't named yet. You see the outcome where she's lonelier in a new place, where the problems followed her because they were internal, where she's now broke and isolated. You also see the timeline where it works, where the risk pays off, where she needed exactly this disruption. You see both. You see 12 variations of both. She's still talking, painting the fantasy in broad, hopeful strokes. You open your mouth to voice the risks. You hear yourself about to be the killjoy. You close your mouth. That sounds exciting, you say, which is not a lie, but also not the whole truth. Psychologists call this temporal projection, the brain's capacity to simulate multiple future scenarios simultaneously. High working memory correlates with increased future-oriented cognition. Your brain doesn't just think about the decision, it lives the decision, plays it forward through time, stress-tests it against variables. The mechanism is protective. You avoid catastrophic mistakes. You plan, prepare, see around corners. The cost is paralysis and the social burden of being the person who sees disaster in everyone's hopeful plans. They leap. You've already mentally landed before you jump. You know the impact force, the probability of injury, the backup plans needed. They call it overthinking. You call it thinking? You've been right before about the consequences they didn't see. It didn't make you popular. It made you the one who ruins spontaneity with reality. So you've learned to stay quiet, to let them discover what you already mapped, to be there for the aftermath you predicted but didn't prevent, because warning someone feels like telling them they're not smart enough to see what you see. You're not pessimistic. You're just playing the game 30 moves ahead while they're celebrating the current turn. Both approaches have costs. Yours just looks like anxiety to people who can't see the future branches you're navigating. The ache of existential awareness. You're in traffic. Normal Wednesday. Boring commute. The car in front of you has a bumper sticker. The song on the radio is playing the same 4 chords every pop song uses. The light turns green. And then, without warning, without permission, you're acutely aware that you're a temporary arrangement of matter, experiencing consciousness for a cosmically brief interval before returning to non-existence. You're gripping the steering wheel of a metal box, piloting it through space alongside other primates in metal boxes, all of you engaged in this elaborate, synchronized dance you call traffic, and underneath the mundane routine is the staggering absurdity and fragility and improbable beauty of being alive, aware, here, and everyone else seems fine. They're checking their phones and singing along and planning dinner, and you're having a minor ontological crisis in the left lane. The moment passes. The ache doesn't. You're buying milk at the grocery store. You're thinking about entropy. Both are true. Neuroscientists call this metacognitive intrusion, consciousness observing itself, creating recursive loops of awareness. The default mode network, the brain's self-referential system, shows heightened activity in individuals with high abstract reasoning ability. Your brain generates meaning even in the absence of stimuli. It can't not notice the extraordinary buried in the ordinary. The mechanism is relentless. While they navigate the day on autopilot, you're watching yourself navigate the day, aware of the watching, aware of the awareness, turtles all the way down. Every mundane moment is also a philosophical moment. You can't buy groceries without brushing against the infinite. They live. You live and watch yourself living simultaneously. The trade-off is profound experience and profound exhaustion. You feel the weight of existence in moments that should be light. You can't unfeel the miracle and tragedy of being conscious. Most people never feel it once. You can't stop feeling it. You think, am I insane or is everyone else asleep? The answer is neither, and both. And the question itself is the evidence that you're stuck in this particular prison of awareness. You blink. The ache settles back into background radiation. You buy the milk, you go home. And somewhere between the parking lot and your door, you have the thought that being alive is unbearably beautiful and unbearably sad, and no one wants to hear about it at dinner. So you don't say it. But it's there. Always there. The part of you that can't look away from the fact of existence itself. The price of intellectual honesty. The conversation has taken a turn. Someone just presented a false dichotomy. It's either this or that, ignoring the obvious third option and the spectrum between. Someone else is nodding along, agreeing with a premise that contains a logical fallacy you spotted 3 sentences ago. The group is coalescing around a comforting oversimplification. You feel it rising. The need to correct, to clarify, to introduce the nuance they're flattening. You know what happens if you speak. You've done this before. You'll be the well-actually person. The one who makes things complicated. The one who can't just let people have their simple, wrong version of events because you're pathologically incapable of accepting intellectual dishonesty, even the harmless social kind. Well, actually, you start. You hear yourself. You hate yourself. You continue anyway. It's more complicated than that. The energy shifts. They're annoyed. You're annoying. You know it even as you explain the thing they didn't want explained. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance intolerance, a low threshold for holding contradictory or inaccurate information. Research shows that individuals with high need for cognition experience discomfort when confronted with logical inconsistencies that others readily accept. Your brain treats intellectual dishonesty as a threat. It can't relax into comfortable lies. The mechanism is unforgiving. They choose social harmony. You choose accuracy. Your brain won't let you pretend the nuance doesn't exist, won't let you nod along when you see the error, won't let you be complicit in oversimplification, even when that's the socially intelligent move. They think you're argumentative. You're just allergic to wrongness. The trade-off is integrity versus belonging. You could stay quiet. You've tried. It feels like betraying your own mind. Like watching someone build a house on a faulty foundation and saying nothing because telling them would make the party awkward. Silence would be easier. You can't afford it. You say the thing. You provide the context. You introduce the complicating factor. You watch them decide you're difficult. You are difficult. Because easy would require you to make yourself stupider, to pretend you don't see what you see, to value their comfort over shared accuracy. You can't make yourself smaller to fit. You've tried. Your shape is your shape. And the world calls that difficult when it really means incompatible with convenient fictions. The isolation of different operating systems. You love them, genuinely. Your friends, your partner, your family, they're good people, kind people. You share activities, memories, affection. From the outside, it looks like connection. From the inside, you're aware of the gap. You're mid-conversation when you realize they're running different software. They're processing at a different speed, a different depth. You explain the thing that's bothering you, not the surface thing, the actual thing 3 layers down, and you watch their face. They're nodding. They think they're following. They're not following. You see it. The moment where they translated your complexity into something simpler they can hold. They heard the words. They missed the architecture. And now they're responding to the simplified version, the version that isn't quite what you meant, and you have to choose. Do you try again? Do you let it go? You let it go. You've learned this is as close as it gets. Cognitive scientists call this asynchrony, mismatch in processing speed and depth that creates communication barriers. Standard deviation from mean intelligence creates exponential difficulty in mutual understanding. It's not judgment, it's math. The further you are from the center, the fewer people speak your language fluently. The mechanism is isolating. You can connect through shared activities, movies, dinners, surface-level compatibility. But the you that lives in your head, the one running 1,000 background processes, parsing meaning from patterns, building conceptual frameworks while brushing your teeth, that you is mostly unseen. They love you. They love the version of you they can perceive. The gap between those two things is where you live alone. Many friends, few witnesses. You've learned not to expect them to follow where your mind goes. You've learned to translate constantly, to bring back reports from the depths in language that works at sea level. You've learned that proximity isn't intimacy. You think, maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe this is all anyone gets. But sometimes, rarely, preciously, you meet someone running similar code. And the relief is so intense it's almost painful. The experience of being understood without translation, of speaking at full speed and having someone not just keep up but add to it, of not being alone in your own head for once. It shows you what you've been missing, and then often they leave. Move away, drift. And you're back to the baseline isolation of being fundamentally incompatible with most people's processing capacity. You're not better. You're not worse. You're just running code they don't have compilers for. And so you love them from behind the gap. You translate. You connect where you can. And you carry the loneliness of knowing they'll never meet the you that lives too deep for them to reach. The gift you didn't ask for. So here you are. You can't choose a restaurant without existential paralysis. You see patterns no one else cares about. You're exhausted from translating yourself into something digestible. You see consequences that paralyze you while others leap fearlessly into disaster. You can't stop noticing that you're conscious, and it aches. You can't tolerate comfortable lies even when they'd make your life easier. And you're lonely in rooms full of people you love who will never fully know you. These 8 struggles? They're the price of admission to seeing clearly. Neuroscience is beginning to understand what you've always felt. Cognitive diversity isn't damage. The features that make your life harder, the relentless analysis, the depth processing, the inability to accept surface answers, these aren't bugs in your programming, they're the program. Research on neurological variation shows that the traits clustered under high intelligence come as a package. Increased pattern recognition, elevated metacognition, enhanced future simulation, low tolerance for inconsistency. You didn't choose this. You can't unchoose it. The world needs people who can't unsee complexity. It won't thank you. Most days it will punish you for it, make you feel too much, too slow, too difficult, too intense. Do it anyway, because somewhere in the translation exhaustion and the existential aching and the loneliness of running code nobody else has compilers for, you're doing something essential. You're seeing truly. You're refusing to accept easy lies. You're holding space for nuance in a world that wants everything simple. You've wished to be simpler. You can't. This is the deal. The depth that isolates you is also what lets you understand things others can't. The analysis that paralyzes you is what helps you avoid the disasters they stumble into. The translation fatigue proves you're trying to bridge the gap. The ache of awareness means you're awake. These struggles aren't proof you're broken. They're proof you're rare. You're reading this. You recognize yourself in these patterns. That's the evidence. You're not alone. There are others running the same operating system, paying the same prices, carrying the same weight. Find them. They're looking for you too. And in the meantime, keep going. Keep seeing. Keep refusing to make yourself smaller. The world needs what you notice, even when it doesn't know how to thank you for it, especially then.